Thanks for joining the presentation. I wanted to talk about 13 reasons why we are cheaper, better, faster, stronger than the average app development agency. So there we go. Reason 1, we work remotely. This makes us able to work from different time zones, so I think that is a great advantage. If there's like high pressure on the project, you can build the project day and night if needed. Yeah, so because we are all in different time zones, it can speed up the project a lot because you can work 24/7 basically. We're driven by passion, optimize our motivation because we don't take on every project. I just try to look for interesting stuff, and we also do our own projects, of course. So yeah, I think that's a big advantage also to just have interesting projects that are like that make us more motivated. I think also a big advantage of Code from Anywhere is that we all have the same tech stack. Just full stack TypeScript is what I think is the best stack. I call it with React Native. I call it the Expo Edge because there's no native code. There's CI/CD automation. You have included from scratch. You have over-the-air updates, push notifications, and much more that is included into Expo from the beginning. So that saves a lot of time. I've also done a lot of React Native projects in the past that didn't have Expo, and my feeling is that it's about 2 times as slow or even slower to make a bare React Native project compared to an Expo project. So yeah, I think that's a great advantage to use Expo. Yeah, we use Next.js a lot, I think. It's really good for SEO and compared to bare React, and it also has some more performance optimizations like server-side props, get static props, which really speed up the performance and is really good for SEO. Because all the pages are generated at build time and are served as HTML to the user. Yeah, so that's really preferred by Google, which is why pages made in Next.js will rank higher. So that's why I think Next.js is a great choice too. And then on the back end, I feel that TypeScript Node.js is the best choice, with Express the most popular API. And then the MySQL is like a really common database, and then I often use Sqlize to make it easier to talk with the database. But I heard, for example, that Bakya, you also use a lot of raw MySQL, so that's fine too. I think it's both a good choice there. And also other databases, I think they're fine too, but the most important is that we all use TypeScript everywhere. That saves us a lot of time because we can share more code, we can learn it more quickly, and we can be faster because we have so much experience with it. Yeah, so my other point is the backend is simple, our backend. For example, unless like clients have a really complex backend, because clients, of course, they have their own opinion and sometimes they want to make it very professional and complex. But in most cases, I try to keep my backend simple. So for example, a lot of things that I save time on is, for example, one, you can do Sqlize without migrations. You can have a property called alter true, which automatically migrates everything every time you start the server. And it will just look at the different added model fields, and if there's something changed, it will just make that change too in the database. And yeah, this saves a lot of time, so because you don't have to make migrations. If you're working on an MVP that's not live yet, there's no need for a development environment, a staging environment, a production environment. You just have one environment, one database. The database is on the server, you connect to it locally. It's not the safest way, of course, but for an MVP, I think it's fine. So that's why I also save a lot of time. We can save a lot of time on that. Also, you don't need to use MySQL. It takes a lot of time to set that up. You can also just use SQLite. It's just a file in your code. So that's great. It's just really easy to set up. Also, if you make like an MVP, why do you need Kubernetes or why do you need Docker or anything? Like, you don't need many servers. You just need one server most of the times, unless you have millions and millions and millions of requests. But most of the times you don't have that for an MVP. So that's why you can scale vertically. If you just need a bit more RAM, you can scale vertically on the back end. Yeah, so that's it. Most of the reasons are about not optimizing prematurely, so not optimizing too early for the future. And because of that, you can save a lot of time and keep it really, really simple. So that's a big advantage, I guess. Also, another thing, we don't use too much tooling. So for example, Jira, Trello, you don't need it. We can all do everything in GitHub and Slack and VS Code. And actually, I don't think we need much more tools, unless if you have a really good idea. For example, we talked about Notion instead of Google Drive, because actually we also have Google Drive. So that's one more tool, but not so many tools. So that saves a lot of time to not have to learn all the tools and have to connect and integrate everything. Just takes too much time. We don't have designers in Code From Anywhere at the moment. The team is very small and we focus on the functionality. I think you usually only need designers for like small feedback, like an hour, like let a freelancer come in and provide some feedback on the MVP. But like mostly you only need designers to make the design really shine, like really good post MVP. So after the MVP you can hire a designer to improve the design, and before that you just focus on the functionality. And as a developer, I've learned that it's really easy to copy good apps. For example, you look at big good apps and just do the design similar to them, and then it's already really good. So that's my opinion. Also another advantage, you can go solo first and double down later. For example, when I start a project, I always start on it alone and make the whole complete boilerplate. And after it gets bigger, after it gets some traction, then it's nice to add some more people. But I prefer to go solo in the beginning, because you don't have to make a lot of discussion. You can make the choices yourself, and it's a small team which removes all the overhead of discussion. That's the main thing. So yeah, I've seen in my experience that if you do something alone, it's much faster. Another one, that we focus on our niche and can get very good at it. Like I said already, TypeScript, React Native, Node.js, and React. Not much else. We can learn very fast from each other and become very good in this niche. And yeah, because you have so little to learn. Like of course, it's as a beginner, it's still a lot to learn. But after you know all of that, you can get really good really fast. And especially if there's a lot of other professionals in the same team that you can learn from, it goes really fast before you can get up to speed really quickly. Yeah, so we don't use user stories, and for MVPs, if you work alone, you can work on master or the main branch, and you just have some requirement issues. You don't have user stories in the beginning because you don't have users for an MVP. So I think that saves a lot of time too, because if you just have like a scope issue with a lot of requirements, it becomes really easy. And if you work solo on a project, you can just work on the main branch, and that saves a lot of time too, so to not have the overhead of Git. Yeah, so that's mainly, of course, only for the first iteration. After you are in a bigger team and you have like a product live, then you should also split up the branches to not have merge conflicts or something. But before you do that, I think it's really good to work on the main branch and have requirements issues and not have like a sprint, because if you have a sprint with only a subset of issues, you can't really freestyle. And what I mean by freestyling is that you just see all that has to be done and you just go in the code and do what you like. Because there's so much that has to be done, you can choose yourself, right? You don't need to have like a product owner for that chooses what you have to do. So that's a big advantage, because if you freestyle, you are more free, you enjoy it more, and you are faster because of it. So yeah, this one is actually not really true. At the moment, we are not all senior level, but I hope that we can all become really good at TypeScript full stack as quick as possible. And we don't have a product owner I think every developer can also have a good feeling themselves for like what needs to be done. If you have a good overview of the issues and you see what is required for the MVP, I think then the developer can also have a good feeling about this, so you don't need a product owner for that. Because we're also senior after a while, you don't need to spend much time on reviewing each other's code. You're doing projects alone, and that just speeds up the whole process. And then there's the boilerplates, because we only work with one stack, and I've worked with that for 4 years now. So we must have also a lot of boilerplates already from ourselves, from our past projects that we can use in the future to set as a starting point, and that can save up to a lot of time, especially for the MVPs. It can save a lot of time, maybe even 50%. But certainly it can save a few weeks if you don't make everything from scratch, but just use a past project and use that to start. And then on top of that, we also have libraries like React with Native, a Papa package, and we are gonna have maybe like a common components library, which can also save a lot of time, like common hooks that we use frequently in different projects, and yeah, tricks and snippets. And if we all know those libraries well, we can share it between each other and keep the code base small and yeah, speed up the whole process. And then I want to talk about freestyling, because I really like that word. So yeah, freestyling is, like I said, whenever you don't have very restricted way of working, but a more free way of working, where you can choose yourself what you want to work on. You go with the flow, and you just see like, oh, this has to change. You do that a little bit, and then you go to another file and you see like, oh, this is also not done yet. You do that because you have all the requirements in your head, and yeah, you don't need to go to GitHub all the time and pick up another ticket and drag it to in progress, and all that overhead you don't need. So the core principle is that you try to understand the whole project and the scope and the requirements and just make it. That's called freestyling. So yeah, that were the 13 advantages I could think of from Code From Anywhere. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy if you have any questions.